Hello, welcome. I'm going to give this a few moments to welcome people in and just kind of settle into our space today. How are you? Hopefully you can hear me. If you're here and you cannot hear me, please let me know. Or if you can hear me, I guess makes more sense. Let me know. Welcome January 2021. It's kind of nice to have a new year, though not much feels too different, does it? Hi, Lisa. Thank you. Good to see you. So welcome. So I wanted to do this today to connect with you in the new year. We are halfway through just about already, and it's been quite the beginning of a year, hasn't it? In lots of ways. Some ways, not a lot has changed, but in some other ways, there's hope for things to begin to shift a little bit. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of do a practice together that I'll guide you through to hopefully kind of just settle in to a new year. Kind of thinking or feeling into the possibilities that lie ahead. Hello. Welcome, UK and Sweden. All over. Welcome, everybody. Happy to have you here. So, how are you? Actually, let's start with that. How are you? How is this new year feeling to you? Does it feel like it is an opportunity for change or for new beginnings? Does it feel like it's just a continuation of the dragging on of one of the most challenging years, or at least in our lifetimes, the most challenging year that we've experienced collectively? Of course, in different parts of the world, there's always challenging things going on. But this COVID has been kind of a global experience. So it's definitely been different, for sure. So I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to share just kind of how you're doing and how you're feeling about this new year. Also, are you somebody who tends to create resolutions for yourself? You've probably heard me talk about how I don't really do resolutions specifically, but I do often take this time to kind of recenter, to take some time to reflect and just kind of determine what kind of wrapping up the previous year and therefore allowing myself to be open to what is coming. This transition is a little bit more challenging because of everything that we're all still dealing with. So last year, so 2019, when I thought about 2020, I had some plans. I had some pretty big plans. And at the very beginning of the year, things started off a little rough, even before COVID happened. Not really bad, just unexpected and difficult to kind of navigate around. And so the whole year was pretty challenging. This year, as 2021 has approached, I thought about the reality that not a lot was going to change, at least not in the first half probably of the year. And that's always a little disappointing when you're coming out of a really challenging year or period of time. And so as I thought about it, I thought, okay, Not a lot that's going to change immediately. Not a lot I can do about that. So I'm going to try to focus on what can I do to try to make that on a regular basis, not necessarily every day, but if every day works, then great. Um, but what can I do on a fairly regular basis to reconnect with what I want, how I want to feel, what I want as this year unfolds and into the following years? So it's not so much about changing something or creating a resolution where everything is going to be different, um, but more about being very intentional and mindful about reconnecting within, so that as you, or as I was thinking about it originally, as I kind of moved through this year, especially the beginning part of the year, just having a reminder, a conscious reminder to come back, to recenter, to ground, to let myself move away from everything that's happening in this current moment and allow space for what is possible as the year unfolds. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of a practice for that today. Change, I've made more, better opportunity. Good for you. Good for you. So I'm going to walk you through that in just a moment. And then, of course, at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A if you've got any questions. So if it feels comfortable to you, go ahead and just kind of let yourself relax into whatever you're sitting on, lying on. Just kind of let yourself relax a little bit. Let yourself feel the support of that thing that is underneath you, even if it's the floor or the ground. Especially if it's the floor or the ground, I guess, because you can really feel a little bit more connected to the earth, a little bit more stable. But wherever you're at is perfectly fine. Just letting yourself relax a little bit into that container, so to speak. And then if it feels comfortable to you, maybe close your eyes and just give yourself this space and this time for you to reconnect with yourself, to connect with me, to connect with the energy of this container that we're creating here together today. Whether you're watching this on replay or you're watching it live. So as you just kind of allow yourself to settle in, letting your muscles relax a little bit, letting yourself really settle, release into that surface below you. Letting your jaw relax a little bit. Letting your shoulders release. Instead of holding them up here and forward, just letting them go. If your hands are clenched, making sure that you release your hands. Maybe even open your palms to the sky. If you feel that you need a little bit more grounding, if you feel like your mind is all over the place, or you're feeling maybe a little unsettled, then maybe putting your palms down, even resting like on your thighs or something like that. That may be more beneficial. But if you feel fairly grounded, then maybe having your palms open to the sky, allowing yourself to receive. So just making sure that you are breathing. Don't force it. Just your natural breath is fine. Just make sure that you're breathing. So I think it's important to really think about the year that was 2020. It was a lot. It was challenging. And for many of you, there was probably a lot of grief. Maybe you lost somebody that you love very dearly. Or maybe what you've lost is a job, a sense of normalcy, your social life, the connections of getting together with people on a regular basis, security. There's a lot that we experienced in 2020. It's important to honor that. If we just try to pretend that it's over and therefore we can just move on, the challenges that it created are still going to live inside of our nervous system. If there's grief, if there's fear or uncertainty, it's going to live in our nervous system and even in our heart and our gut, because that's where fear lives. So it's important that we take some time and acknowledge the reality of 2020. The difficulty, the struggle, the emotional struggle, the challenge, the things that may have come up. If you were ill, if you got sick, people around you got sick. And again, the grief if you've lost somebody that you care about. It's important to be able to honor that, acknowledging that it was hard, acknowledging the reality of whatever pain and fear may be there, whatever fear or pain may continue to be there. Just being able to say to yourself, it was hard, it was painful, it was challenging, and I don't have to pretend that it wasn't. We are all in this together. Across the globe, we have all struggled with what this has meant in our lives. And then on top of it, there's other things going on too, right? All the other life challenges didn't go away. They were just compounded by having to deal with COVID and everything that entailed. The economic aspect of it, the isolation aspect of it, again, the grief. So being able to just witness, see it, validate it, it makes sense that it was a struggle. It also makes sense that there's still struggle. So in that witnessing, in being able to not run from it, being able to say, it makes sense, of course I struggled, and I'm not alone. That is healing. That's honoring. That's validating. It's connecting, even because you're recognizing, you're allowing yourself to really know that you're not alone. So give yourself just a few moments to reflect on maybe a few days that were particularly difficult, or a few aspects of what was challenging. To notice that, to acknowledge that, and validate whatever that feeling, whatever that experience is. So just honor that within yourself. Reminding yourself that you're not alone. Reminding yourself that feeling is normal and healthy. Reminding yourself that struggle is also normal, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it is not weakness. And then with that acknowledgement, also being able to remind yourself that it's not permanent. Now, obviously, if someone that you care about has died, that is permanent. But the grief that you feel, the level of you feel right now, is not. And I believe that really any of the other challenges, any of the other struggles are not permanent. So reminding yourself that the struggle the implications of what we have lived through are really not permanent. And in the coming months, there will be some shifts. There will be shifts that are external to us individually, things that we don't necessarily have any control over, but that things are going to shift. As vaccinations are given, as the virus becomes a little bit more controlled, some of those other pieces of our life will also begin to come back. I think for a lot of people, hopefully it's not the same as it was before. I know culturally, hopefully it's not all the same as it was before. Not just here in the US, but in different places, but certainly here in the US. This year has also brought a lot of cultural justice issues. And I am hopeful that things will begin to shift there as well. When recognizing that the struggle is not permanent, we are coming into a time where things will begin to shift. Recognizing the things that we do not have control over. While it can feel a little overwhelming, is important, because when we acknowledge that we don't have control over certain things that we might try to control, because that's a way of coping, we can release that. We can release the energy that we have trying to hold on to that, trying to control it. So recognizing the things that we do not have control over, that maybe you've been trying to control. When you say to yourself, when you acknowledge, I can't control how soon the vaccines get out there. I can't control how soon this pandemic gets under control. I can't control how other people choose to support other people in this. And I can't control how I feel or how I struggle in any given moment. With that, being able to recognize I can't control how I feel. There's more I want to say about it, but I think it's important to recognize that. Feelings come up. We don't sit and contemplate, how do I want to feel right now? Okay, I'm going to feel that. Especially not when there's a lot of challenging things going on. We're just constantly feeling stuff. So recognizing that the feelings are going to come. The difficult feelings, the good feelings, they're going to come. And if we can recognize that they're going to come, that we don't really have control over them coming, then when they come, those challenging feelings, when they come, we can kind of breathe into them and release them with our breath as well, kind of like riding a wave. So while we can't necessarily control those immediate feelings and reactions that come up for us, if we can recognize that we have the ability to kind of flow with it, that it can come up and it can release with an exhalation, right? I talk all the time about breathing in something that feels good and exhaling something that doesn't. So the feelings are going to come and they can go. And when you do it intentionally, it makes a difference. Maybe not just if you do it one time, but the more you practice, the more of a difference it makes. So, in the recognition of what we cannot control, it may feel a little overwhelming, but when you release that energy by accepting that, then you allow for an opportunity to recognize what you can control. And what I was just talking about is something that you can control. When a feeling comes up, when a fear comes up, noticing it. Now that's not easy. Like you have to work to be mindful of that. But as feelings come up, working to be mindful of writing it out, noticing it's there, exhaling and releasing, inhaling again, exhaling and releasing. That's something you can control. You can also control how you move through your day, right? Some of that might be being very intentional about doing some things that are self-care related. If you're feeling stressed, being very intentional, carving out a little bit of time. Maybe it's just to breathe for a few breaths. Maybe it's shutting out all social media and electronics and people and having some quiet time to just be. Maybe you read, maybe you listen to music, maybe you go for a walk. But being intentional about doing something that can help you feel a sense of peace, a sense of calm, or maybe what you need to feel a little bit better is connection. So we do have the ability to do those things. I'm not saying it's easy to choose those things because it's often not, especially when we're struggling. But that's why the idea of being mindful of it, of making a conscious, intentional effort to do it, even if you don't feel like it. So maybe putting Post-it notes around of some things that you can do if you're feeling stressed or isolated can help, so that every day you can be intentional about doing some of those things. So you can't control the stuff that's happening out here, but you can control, for the most part, what you choose to do deliberately. And it does generally have to be deliberate when you're struggling, especially. It's not going to happen automatically. So that's why I'm referring to it as a choice. It's not an easy choice, but it is something that we can choose to do. So again, recognizing what we can't control, recognizing what we can control within ourselves. So with that in mind, I'd like you to think about both in terms of now and as this year unfolds, as the next several months unfold. What would you like to feel? Think about that for a moment. If your eyes aren't closed, maybe just close your eyes for a moment and reflect on the types of feelings that you've experienced before that you know you'd like more of. Or maybe it's not something that you're necessarily able to connect to that you felt before, but maybe there's something that you recognize that you would like to feel in the coming months. Maybe it's something like peace. I think we could all use some peace. Maybe it's something much more significant like excitement or I don't know, I can't think of anything else right now, but it could be something just that feels calming and good, or maybe it's something that's related to a particular kind of experience that you may not may not be able to experience on a regular basis, but there might be moments when you could experience that feeling, like joy, or like I said, excitement, or ease, connection, elation. There's all kinds of feelings out there, and I'm kind of drawing a little bit of a blank here. But what would you like to feel? I don't want you to get caught up in what would you have to do to feel it. I don't want you to go there. Just what would you like to feel? Let your mind go. Maybe you identify many different feelings, or maybe there's just one that you keep coming back to. There's no right feeling. There's no right way of doing it. Just what comes to you. And then think about, okay, there's a lot out there that I can't control, but what can I do on a regular basis, daily, a few times a week, weekly? What can I do that can help me feel that? So notice I didn't say, what can I do to feel that? What can I do to help me feel that? Because depending on what that feeling is, in that moment that you're thinking about it, maybe there's too much going on to be able to feel it in that moment. But what can you do in that moment to help move you toward being able to feel that? So if you know that you want to feel peace, but things are incredibly hectic and you've got barking dogs or screaming children or lots of noise around you, it may be really challenging to think about what you can do to feel peace in that particular moment, or maybe on that day if it's a lot of stuff going on. But what can you do mindfully for a moment or a few to help move you toward being able to feel peace? So you might be able to go lock yourself in the bathroom for a minute and breathe. Maybe you go in your bedroom and grab the pillow and scream your frustration into the pillow, or without the pillow, if that feels okay, if the people around you aren't going to freak out because you're screaming. Maybe you get outside and breathe some fresh air. Maybe you meditate. Maybe you listen to some music, even if it's only part of a song. But there are things that you can do in almost any moment, again, that you can control, that can help move you towards that feeling that you want to experience. If you're feeling that you want to have this during these next few months, or to kind of cultivate for yourself, if that feeling is self-love, for example, what can you do in a moment to help move you there? Because you're certainly not going to suddenly feel lots of self-love if that feels like something you want to move towards, right? So you're not just going to suddenly decide one day, okay, now I feel like I love myself. No, you're going to have to do things mindfully to help get you to that place where you feel like you love yourself, right? So in a moment, you can say, what can I do right now? Or what can I do today to help move me towards that? And that can look a lot of different ways. Self-care is one of the things. Self-compassion is absolutely one of the things. Talking a lot about self-compassion lately. Connection with people who you feel supported by is one of those things. Removing yourself from all the chaos around you, giving yourself a few moments is one of those things. Maybe listening to a guided meditation to help you connect within. There's lots of different things that you can do to help move you there. So in a moment, you can ask yourself, what can I do right now to help move me towards that? And literally, it can be a few breaths, a few mindful moments of breath, sorry, just helps you come back to yourself. If you're doing it mindfully, you have to be connecting to it. And any of those moments of feeling that feel good, letting yourself connect to what that feels like in your body. So even in the midst of lots of challenging things going on, lots of difficult emotions even, if you have some sort of reminder, maybe you put a reminder on your phone, and every hour or every few hours you get a little notification, and maybe you say something to yourself like, what can I do in this moment? Post-its, whatever it is. If you can take just a few seconds even in that time, or maybe you can carve out a little bit more time, but what can I do in these few seconds to move me closer to that? One of the things that you can do too is that feeling that you want to experience more of, if that is something that you have felt before, even if just very briefly, taking a little bit of time and reminding yourself, what does that feel like in my body? What did it feel like in my heart? What did it feel like in my gut? Did it feel warm? Did it feel energizing? If you can reconnect to what that felt like, a remembrance of what that felt like, when you think about it now, you can try to reconnect to that feeling. When you do that, it strengthens that feeling. It gives it more energy and strengthens it. So then when you think about moving towards feeling more of that, that energy helps move you even further along. So those things I think can be really helpful. The other thing that I think can be really helpful as we think about coming out of a really difficult time and kind of being able to see the hope and possibility for what's ahead, is taking time to connect with gratitude. Most of you, at least if you follow me on social media, you know that I do a weekly gratitude thing most every week. Because gratitude is a very powerful way of feeling better and healing. So even thinking about this could be part of what you incorporate. Taking time each day, maybe before you even get out of bed or before you go to bed, and just allowing yourself to connect to something that you feel truly grateful for or appreciative of. It could be something very small or something really big. It all matters. And the small things, the small everyday kinds of things, when we pay attention to them, they can often make the biggest difference because it's something that we can recognize on a pretty regular basis that we can feel grateful for. So when you think about, what do I want to feel? If you are able to sit and connect to something that you're grateful for, there's a good chance that what you come up with and how that feels in your body likely has some similarity to what it is you want to feel. So it's another good way to practice. So whether you've done it as I've talked about it, or maybe you can do it afterwards, I really would encourage you to give yourself a little bit of space. Doesn't have to be long, but just give yourself a little bit of space. Maybe you even journal a little bit. Letting yourself explore what you want to feel and what you can do on a regular basis to help you get there. And there could be a lot of different things that you come up with. Some things are going to be relatively easy and very short, and some things might be a lot more significant. But what are some of the things that you can do on a regular basis that can help you feel what you'd like to be able to feel? So I would really, if anybody feels like you'd like to share, I'd actually really like to hear from some of you about what that might be for you, because it might actually help inspire somebody else. Because sometimes it can be hard to recognize, what do I want to feel? It can be hard for me sometimes to think about, what do I want to feel? One of the things this was one of the things I came up with for last year, and it is still there, is I want to feel every day that I am just in flow. Like that no matter what is going on, whether I'm working, whether it's just in my personal life, that everything just kind of flows. I want to feel more of that in my life. So what can I do on a regular basis that can help that? For me, part of that is moving, just moving my body. Doesn't have to be for very long. It could be a walk, a little dancing, exercise, yoga. It can be journaling, just letting myself write. No censoring, just free flow writing. There are a lot of different things that can help us move towards how we want to feel. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. There's no right or wrong way of how we want to feel. And I'm not suggesting to you that you come up with the way that you want to feel and you have to stick with it, and that's the only thing you can work towards. There may be different things that come to mind. Maybe you've got a list of things that you want to feel. That's perfectly okay. But I think taking some time to actually write it down can be helpful. Writing down the things that you can do on a regular basis to help move you in that direction is also really helpful. And literally, like Post-it notes or notifications from your phone is a really good way to do that, because it's easy to forget. It's really easy to forget. All right, I'm going to put my glasses on. Thank you guys for sharing. Oh, Cheryl, I'm so glad. I'm sorry that you're hurting, but I'm so glad that you feel that this is helpful. Hi, Jack. The thing I'd like to feel is proud of myself. Yes. Probably something most of us could likely benefit from. This is a great one. There are so many different ways that we can feel proud of ourselves. So for everybody, this actually might be a good thing for a lot of people to really think about. Not that you need to switch your idea to proud or whatever, but just in general, kind of thinking about what will help you feel proud of yourself. Because if you don't know what might help you feel proud of yourself, then it's hard to work towards that. But there are so many ways that we can feel proud of ourselves. If you've got ideas about how you can move towards that, doing something every day is certainly a way to feel proud of yourself. There's so many ways that we can actually feel proud of ourselves if we allow ourselves to feel proud and not minimize or dismiss that thing, whatever it is, which most of us are pretty expert at, being able to discount the things that we might be able to feel proud of. I would like to be able to allow myself to feel loved and valued. Yes. Yes. So this is kind of challenging because there's a lot of vulnerability in this. But I think one of the things that can be really helpful with that is being very mindful about making sure that you're connecting. Because it is through connection that we begin to believe that we are worthy of being loved. So connection is such an important part of that. And I also think that self-compassion is a really important part of that. I'm smiling because it is amazing how much comes back to self-compassion. And when I wrote the book, I mean, I was aware of that, but I wasn't really thinking about just how much comes back to self-compassion, or how much maybe I talk about self-compassion. I don't know, but like so much is related to the ability that we have to experience self-compassion. So self-compassion and connection. So things that you can do on a daily basis that help with that. Self-care is another thing that is helpful with that. I mostly want to feel safe. Yes, it's hard to do in 2020, especially with trauma hanging in the background beforehand. Yeah, this is for trauma survivors in general. Obviously, it's a challenging thing, but for 2020 has triggered for a lot of people who didn't even think that they had trauma or thought they healed their trauma or whatever. Dealing with COVID and everything related to that has been very triggering for a lot of people, even if they're not recognizing any connection there. Because there's a lot of similarity in the energetic experience of it and the uncertainty of it. So every day, being able to remind yourself how you are safe. So every day, being able to remind yourself that you woke up and you were safe. Being, if you go out and you come home, reminding yourself that you were able to do that safely. If you are vulnerable with somebody and it turns out okay, reminding yourself that it was safe. Even within your own kind of body. So like if you go for a walk and nothing bad happens, you don't fall and break something, reminding yourself that you went for a walk and it was safe. There's lots of different ways that we are actually safe in our lives, but we don't really think about it because it's just living our lives. So if feeling safe, embodying a sense of safety is something that you're searching for, which I think is a good thing, being able to remind yourself of all those ways that you can be safe, or even like what can you do to stay safe? And some of those things, especially as a woman, actually I don't know that you're a woman. For some reason, I believe that you're a woman. I think you said that. I think somehow I know that. But particularly as a woman, like if you go out, as women, we tend to not necessarily feel very safe going out, right? But being able to remind yourself every time that you go out that you're safe. And I think it's physically safe. I think emotionally safe is also a really important part of that. So if you share vulnerably with somebody, reminding yourself that you're safe can be really helpful. So much fear and death right now has left me numb. Yeah, Michelle, a lot of people are kind of there too. And feeling numb, being numb, I think there are times when that isn't a bad thing. I think what what is important when you're in that space, and it's usually because your system is just kind of overwhelmed, so you kind of shut down a little bit. But I think the thing that's really important, if that is the case, is being very deliberate about making sure that you're taking care of yourself, that you're staying connected, so that it doesn't further any struggle that may be there. I want to have the right to reveal myself. I'm not sure in what context you're referring to, Lupe. Um, so to me, what I hear in this, I want to feel I have the right to reveal. So that could mean feeling worthy, feeling deserving, feeling safe. Maybe there's some other things there too, but if we feel that we don't have the right to something, it's usually because of not feeling worthy of it. Maybe we don't feel safe in being able to do that. So kind of like with the feeling loved or the self-love, doing some things related to that, self-compassion, to help connect you to your sense of worthiness, to release shame. Those are some helpful practices that might be there. Okay, by reveal, I mean unfolding my personal relationship to my inner self as opposed to codependent thinking. Okay. So here is where, I don't know if you meditate or not, guided meditation actually might be really helpful for this. It could be very short. Different things to help you connect within. So journaling can be helpful. Codependent thinking also makes me think about boundaries. So boundaries, thinking about boundaries might be helpful. And there's things that you can do on a regular daily basis to help with understanding what your boundaries are and implementing them. Connecting with your body might also be something that you think about. I'm just making a note of something I want to mention. But doing practices to connect within can be helpful. I actually have a meditation album called Connecting Within that has, I think, four meditations that I guide you through to help you connect within in some different ways. But that might be helpful. It's relatively inexpensive. I think it's like $7.87 or something US. When this is over, I can try to share a link if that would be helpful. I want to feel aroused again, like not all of the time, but I feel stuck and it's part of the flow, isn't it? Yeah, it absolutely can be. Sometimes aroused, and I'm assuming you're referring to sexually aroused here. Oftentimes it isn't the difficulty, the challenge in being sexually aroused isn't so much about a physicality inability to being aroused. It's an emotional inability or challenge in becoming physically aroused. So in that sense, oftentimes it's about connecting to your body. It's about feeling safe in your body, or if you're talking about with a partner within that relationship. So there are things certainly that you could implement on a daily basis to help with that too, whether it's connecting with your own body, which is often a huge part of it, or working to feel safe with a partner. But either way, there are things that can certainly work. There are so many things that I'd like to feel. Hi, Allison. Loved, being enough, useful, needed, wanted, like what I do, achieve, and give is enough, calm and safe. As I read this, I think like you mentioned different things here, but I think in so many ways they're very connected. There can certainly be some differences, or how you might achieve it could be different. But I do feel like there's a lot of connection between these things here. Certainly loved and being enough very much go together. And even feeling calm and safe certainly go together. But feeling calm and safe also helps us to feel loved and like we are enough. So in all of this, worthiness is certainly a part of it. Boundaries, I think, is also probably a part of it. And in the calm and safe, so there are specific things you can do in those other pieces that are very kind of mindful that you might do. Connecting, self-care, setting a boundary, or even doing the work to connect with what those boundaries are for yourself. In terms of the safe and calm, going back to what I was referring to earlier, and I don't remember which comment it was, but being able to take just little moments where you have literally even just a few moments to yourself, or being able to reflect on moments throughout your day or your week when you have been able to feel a sense of calm, or a sense of not feeling as stressed. Being able to reconnect with that can be helpful. And again, self-compassion can help with all of this. Oh, good, Michelle. Recognize that I have been doing things like gratitude, learn awareness of my feelings. Yeah, awareness is such an important part of all of this. So hopefully you've got some ideas of how you might be able to, on a regular basis, take moments here or there to help you move toward what you ultimately want to feel. You know, there are a lot of waking moments in our days. And anytime that we can be intentional about taking a few moments to connect within ourselves, to take care of ourselves. Self-care doesn't have to be something really big, time-consuming, certainly doesn't have to be expensive or cost anything at all. There are so many moments of self-care. I'm actually thinking I might do a video on this. And self-care, being mindful about self-care and self-compassion are such an important part of healing and believing in our worthiness. It truly is. If we are not taking care of ourselves, every time that we dismiss something that we want or need, even if we're not conscious that we're doing it, every time that we're not taking care of ourselves, we're reinforcing the belief that we are not deserving of being taken care of. And then, of course, if there is something that we know that we need, but we tell ourselves, no, I shouldn't need that, or no, other people come before I do, I'm not I don't deserve it or whatever, then it's obviously reinforcing that belief as well. So whenever we can be mindful about practicing self-care and self-compassion, and I do see those as two different things, every time that we can be mindful of doing that, we're kind of chipping away a little bit by bit, we're chipping away at that core belief of not being worthy, not being enough, not being deserving. So having those moments throughout your day, again, putting Post-its around, notification from your phone, putting those little reminders around to do something in that moment that is nourishing to yourself. It really does go a long way the more you do it. I have fear around honoring pain, scared that in doing that the pain may overwhelm or I could end up stuck in a painful place. I think that this is a very common fear, and I think it's also, in many ways, kind of a reasonable fear. And the reason that I say reasonable isn't so much because it's likely going to happen. I say it's reasonable because the reality is we've learned to cope in a way by kind of denying or avoiding or minimizing the painful feelings. So even though we might feel pain, we're not necessarily connecting to the painful experiences, if that makes sense. So we don't feel the depth of the pain that may be there. So when we think about honoring that pain, it makes sense that we could imagine that if I go there, I'm going to get sucked in and I'm not going to be able to get myself out, almost like quicksand. And it is a reality that when you finally let yourself feel the pain connected to painful experiences, it may feel more intense. You might feel the hurt or the sadness more than maybe what you were before. Actually, what I would say is that you're going to be more conscious of it. Not necessarily that you actually feel it more, but you're more conscious of what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. But so yes, you're more aware of what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, which can feel like it's bigger, but it's not, because that pain is still inside of you. It just may come out in other ways. Feeling just really down or isolated or unmotivated or angry, lonely, like it can come out in all of those ways. But especially if you're working with somebody, so especially if you have support from somebody that can help you through this, when you honor that pain, you're freeing, you're opening the door to release that energy. Now, I'm not suggesting that you open that door and, okay, it's gone, but you open the door for that energy to begin to be released. Because that energy is there. You're just, it's like that Jack in the Box. You're just holding it away. But it's there. It's always been there. So in the honoring of it, you are witnessing, you are validating, you are opening the door so that that pain can be released. But that fear is very normal. I think my problem with self-compassion and feeling proud could be linked to feeling pain when someone disagrees with that. So when somebody doesn't think that you should be self-compassionate or should be proud, that definitely would not feel good and would make it really challenging to be able to believe and trust that within yourself, for sure. So yeah, practice is going to be a really important part of moving forward. To be really honest, I also think that if you have a lot of interaction with people who do not believe that you deserve to have self-compassion or feel proud, that might be something to consider in terms of boundaries. And both of those, both self-compassion and boundaries, are practices. So I think both of those things might be really important in that circumstance. I am not sure if I've ever felt nourished, or maybe shortly, but I push the feeling away always. And I also can't really get food down so much anymore. I am always hungry, but my soul is hungrier. Yes, that idea. So I don't know if this is what you're specifically what you're saying here, but it just made me think about this. So often when we are eating emotionally, well, I guess emotional eating kind of says that, right? That it's really a craving that we have within us. It's not about food hunger. It is about something much deeper than that. The idea of not being sure that you've ever really felt nourished, I think it makes sense that you maybe have never truly felt that, because even when we do something, even mindfully, that is good for us, if we, and maybe this isn't likely going to be mindful, but if we immediately then say something to ourselves, and this could be subconsciously, so we may not notice that we're saying it to ourselves, but oftentimes if we do something nice for ourselves, or somebody else does something nice for us, we can immediately go to a place in our mind from those core beliefs like, oh, I didn't really deserve that, or they were just being nice. I shouldn't have taken all the time to do that. I shouldn't have spent that money. So there's a lot of other thoughts that can often come right after doing something good for ourselves, which is why the ongoing practice, a daily practice, is so important, because then we can kind of balance it out a little bit. And over time, the more we practice, the more strength it gets. And over time, then that positive, nourishing kind of stuff ends up outweighing those negative automatic thoughts that we have. But it is definitely a practice for sure. So I'm so thankful for you guys all joining me today, and I hope that you've found this helpful. And this might even be something that you kind of come back to and remind yourself of, and just kind of get a refresher of moving through the day and how to use some of those daily practices. I talked about, not intentionally, just part of the reality of how all of this works. I talked about self-compassion and I talked about boundaries, two things that are very important. I think most of you have heard me talk about it, and I'm going to talk about it again, but for a couple of reasons. So most of you know that I wrote a book actually on cultivating self-compassion, and I finally got some of my copies in, and so some people have asked for signed copies, so I will be sending you an email if you've signed up for that. But I wanted to let you know too that it's not too late. If you want a signed copy of Deeply Rooted, I will share a link that goes to my website where you can request a signed copy. You can also find it online at your favorite bookseller. But Deeply Rooted is a book that I wrote for helping people. It's a guided journal. So it really is meant as a regular practice to help you really connect with and feel within yourself a grounded sense of self-compassion, of self-acceptance, letting go of shame, letting go of judgment. It is meant for you to use over and over again. So the practices are not things that you're going to journal about one time and then you're magically going to be full of self-compassion, but it's something for you to come back to on a regular basis. So literally, if you have this book and you're wanting to feel proud of yourself, you're wanting to feel like you're enough, you're wanting to feel loved, you're wanting to feel safe, almost anything really, a regular practice doing these kinds of exercises, and of course there's other places you can find this kind of information too, but doing these practices. So coming back to it, this is an actual journal, so there's writing space. So there's practices and journal prompts, but coming back to it, on a regular basis, if you work on this every single day and keep coming back to it, of course, I can't guarantee anything because I have no control over what's happening in your life. But I can say fairly confidently that if you give yourself the time and space to work on a practice like this, so even if it's not this, but something else, if you do it mindfully on a daily basis, it does make a difference. So I write, so there's some writing in here, so a little bit of learning. And then there's prompts for the journaling aspect of it. And then there's a very little just breathing exercise to do, breathing in and breathing out with each exercise as well. So Deeply Rooted is available. There's a hardback and a paperback version. And if you want a signed copy, I will share a link for that. And I'm happy to sign one if you would like one. I can ship internationally, but it's quite expensive to do that. So you're welcome to request one, and I'll let you know how much it will be before you have to buy it, just so that you can be sure that you want to do that. So I'll share a link if you want a signed copy, but if you are interested in it, you can find it at your online retailer internationally as well. The other thing is, and I know I've talked about this before, is boundaries. So there's lots of ways you can learn about boundaries. But I created a course in the summer of 2020. It's a brief course. It's like a 4-week kind of course that you would get all at one time, on being able to connect within and recognize what your boundaries are, what kinds of boundaries are good for you, and what you want and desire, what you need. So it's a digital course, videos, journal prompts, to help you connect with what that is for yourself and being able to implement and enforce those. So that will be available very soon as well. So I will share that with you. If you have not signed up for my newsletter, and especially if you're not on social media, please sign up for the newsletter. I don't write a ton, but that's where I share things that are going on. So any kinds of new groups or courses or anything like that, I always share in my newsletter. I don't always share it on YouTube, which I should, but I don't always do that. So the newsletter, if you're not on Facebook, if you're not following me on Facebook, the newsletter is going to give you all that information. Like if I do a retreat, which I don't know if will be able to happen in 2021 or not, but sign up for my newsletter, courageousjourneys.com. I'll share a link for that as well. So thank you all for being part of my journey. Thank you all for sticking with me through 2020. I'm looking forward to moving forward in 2021 with you all in maybe some new ways as well. I'm trying to figure out what I want to create for us this year, how I want to be together. Doing more or continuing to do the YouTube lives will probably be a part of that. So I'll look forward to connecting with you all more here as well. Oh, Libby, I'm so glad. So you have the book. Great. Oh, Michelle, actually, you were here too. Good. Michelle and Libby, thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad. It's a small book. I don't know how many actual exercises there are. I did count them at one point, but I don't remember. But it's just something that you can keep coming back to. And you need to, in order for it to really make a difference for yourself, you need to keep coming back to the exercises over and over again. The more you practice it, the more helpful it becomes. So thank you all for being here, whether you're live or you're watching this on replay. Any thoughts or comments, please share below. And if you have any feedback, I welcome it. If you have any questions, feel free to share. I will look forward to connecting to you all very soon. Bye. Have a good week, rest of your week and weekend.